legacy of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which has been vital for peace and stability in Northern Ireland. And it is our priority to restore that. And as I've said, we will set out our legal position in due course.
Colin Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What we've heard from this government today is absolutely astonishing. So this morning, the government announced that they're going to ride roughshod over the wishes of victims in Northern Ireland by ripping up an international agreement called the Stormont House Agreement. Now the Foreign Secretary has confirmed that she's going to go against the majority, despite what she might say, the majority of citizens in Northern Ireland who support the protocol by ripping up an international agreement called the Withdrawal Agreement. Mr. Speaker, it's a very, very simple question. Despite what some people they might not want to listen to the majority of people in Northern Ireland. It's a very simple question. How can any international partner or how can any citizen in the north of Ireland ever trust this government again?
Foreign Secretary.
In response to the honourable gentleman, an overwhelming proportion of people in Northern Ireland, 78%, agreed that the protocol needs to change in polling conducted in December 2021. So it's simply not true to say a majority of people in Northern Ireland support the protocol. And as the honourable gentleman knows, the Belfast Good Friday Agreement is based on power sharing. It's based on esteem for all communities. And what we want to find, ideally with the EU, is a solution that works for all the communities in Northern Ireland.
Sir Oliver Hill.
The UK-EU Parliamentary Partnership Assembly met for the first time in Brussels last Thursday, and we had the opportunity of a lively encounter between the Paymaster General and Commissioner Šefčovič. But members were able to ask about the sort of points that have been discussed today. And it was clear from Commissioner Šefčovič that he believed there was a landing place for an agreement on these difficult matters. And so could I just urge my right honourable friend to go the extra mile and see if we can get an agreement? Because if we could, it would open up all the other opportunities for cooperation in energy, science and so many other things.
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I can assure my honourable friend that is absolutely what I want to do. I spoke to Commissioner Šefčovič last night. I want to see a meeting immediately of the Joint Committee to discuss this, but it will require to fix these very real issues in Northern Ireland, particularly on areas like customs and tax, where some of these points are baked into the protocol. In order to change the situation on the ground in Northern Ireland, we do need changes to the protocol, and that is the issue that as yet, and I have had numerous discussions with Maroš Šefčovič about this, as yet there isn't agreement for his mandate to change, to include changes to the protocol. So that is the fundamental issue we're facing, but I am very, very willing to have those discussions. I'm seeing the Irish Foreign Minister Simon Coveney later this week to have further discussions with him. We're very open to resolving these issues between the UK and the EU, but we do need a real acknowledgement of what is happening on the ground in Northern Ireland and the fact that the protocol does need to change.
Fleur Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So much for getting Brexit done, so much for oven ready. What is the cost of the proposed actions? The Treasury has drawn up economic impact assessments for this course of action. When will the government release them for the House?
Well, the solution that we are putting forward will actually save costs by reducing the bureaucracy that traders are currently facing shipping goods into Northern Ireland. So our overall proposal benefits traders into Northern Ireland, it benefits the people of Northern Ireland, it doesn't make the EU any worse off, and it helps protect the single market.
Mark Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I warmly welcome this statement, as I am sure will the Nobel laureate Lord Trimble, who wrote in the national newspaper this morning it was urgent to address the problems of the protocol. As an architect of it with John Hume nearly a quarter of a century ago, he also raised the issue of the adverse influence of the European Court of Justice in Northern Ireland. So can the Foreign Secretary assure the House that under her 6th heading, which I think she called governance, she will take action on that issue as well, please?
Foreign Secretary.
I can assure my honourable friend that we will take action to ensure the arbitration mechanism is in place for Northern Ireland as it is in the TCA, rather than having the ECJ as the final arbiter, which it is as present. And he is right to highlight the article today by Lord Trimble. We need to go back to the original thinking behind the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which was about treating the communities of Northern Ireland with equal esteem to make sure that we have successful arrangements in place to protect peace and political stability, and that has to be this government's priority.
Stephen Farry.
Thank you. The protocol represents Northern Ireland's soft landing from this government's decision to have a hard Brexit. And let me be very, very clear. There is a majority of voters in Northern Ireland, MLAs and the business community, who want to see the issues with the protocol addressed in a pragmatic way through building trust and partnership with the European Union, not through damaging unilateral action, which will damage the UK's international reputation, including with the United States. And specifically on the issue of the European Court of Justice, does the Foreign Secretary understand that if she tinkers with that jurisdiction, that will force Northern Ireland out of the single market for goods and undermine Northern Ireland's ability to attract investment in terms of our dual access to both the European Union and Great Britain?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, what we're proposing for Northern Ireland is a dual regulatory system that encompasses either EU or UK regulation as those businesses choose, that reflects its unique status of having a close relationship with the EU whilst being part of the UK single market.
Duncan Smith.
Welcome my right honourable friend's statement. The powerful article that was referred to by Lord Trimble, one of the architects of the Good Friday Agreement, makes it very clear that the maintenance of the Good Friday Agreement overcomes everything else. And so to that extent, it would be helpful if those who bang on about this at the moment on the other side to know if they read the protocol, Article 13.8 makes it absolutely clear that the protocol can be, through negotiation, changed in whole or in part. Now, the point here is, therefore, my right honourable friend is quite correct. The EU now needs to step up to their responsibilities in that protocol and do what 13.8 tells them to do.
Foreign Secretary.
Well, my right honourable friend is right. The protocol was never designed to be set in stone. And what we have seen is the very real consequences of the protocol, which has not yet been fully implemented on the ground in Northern Ireland. And it has caused political instability. It has caused imbalance in the relationship between the communities in Northern Ireland. And we do need to fix that. And my strong preference is for the EU to secure a change in mandate so we can find a negotiated settlement. I completely agree with Commissioner Šefčovič. There is a landing zone to be had. But what we do need to see is that flexibility so we can really make sure there's a proper green channel operating into Northern Ireland, that we can ensure the people of Northern Ireland are benefiting from the same tax benefits as the people of Great Britain, and so we can fix those problems in a sustainable way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With a cost of living crisis and rising tension in Northern Ireland, the last thing our country needs is a poisonous standoff with the EU and the prospect of a trade deal with our largest trading partner. But until recently, the Prime Minister himself was saying, don't worry, it's all okay, there will be no border down the Irish Sea, and ministers were incredulously parroting the lines that we will only break international law in a limited and specific way. So does the Foreign Secretary agree that it is the pinnacle of incompetence or deceit for someone to negotiate and sign a deal when they have no intention whatsoever of honouring that deal?
Foreign Secretary.
As I've said, our priority is securing peace and stability in Northern Ireland and restoring the primacy of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. The protocol was agreed in good faith but it has had unintended consequences, and it is the responsibility of the United Kingdom government to take action to restore the balance. Our preference is a negotiated solution with the EU. We think there is a landing zone to achieve that, but it does require the EU to change its mandate.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Can I just point out to my right-hand friend that I only reluctantly voted for the protocol and the withdrawal agreement on the basis that we weren't allowed to conclude a permanent trading agreement with the EU until we left, and that it would be superseded or overtaken in due course. Can I also just point out, apart from the disagreement about whether we should have legislation, there seems to be very broad agreement across this House, as there was when I proposed a motion to this House on the 15th of July last year, which the Labour Party actually supported with very warm words, saying there were legitimate concerns amongst the unionist community that had to be addressed. It's a shame the Labour Party won't will the means as well as the ends, but can I invite her to engage the reasonable elements of the Labour Party to support her negotiating position so that we can reach a negotiated settlement?
Foreign Secretary.
I am very happy to engage with colleagues across the House, in particular to explain the issue of why there needs to be a change in the protocol itself to fix the issues about making a clear green lane between GB and Northern Ireland and resolving these taxation issues. Because that is the fundamental issue with the negotiations with the EU, which we have conducted in good faith. I've had numerous negotiations and conversations with Commissioner Šefčovič over the past 6 months, but fundamentally the EU's mandate does not allow those changes to be made that would help us create the green lane, to create the free flow of goods between GB and Northern Ireland, and also address this unfairness in the tax system, where the Chancellor announces a cut to the VAT on solar panels, but that can't be implemented for the people of Northern Ireland.
Mr.
Speaker, however, she may dress this up. Unilaterally changing a previously agreed international treaty is breaking it, and it is doublespeak to suggest otherwise. The consequences are real. Ordinary families up and down this country will have higher prices to pay because of a trade war. So could she take this opportunity to be honest with the British people? If we get to the point where tariffs are raised as a result of a trade war with the EU, how much will they have to pay? Or does she not care?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, we're very clear that this bill is legal in international law, and as I've said, we will set out our legal position in due course. Our proposals, which we'll be outlining in more detail over the coming weeks, are very clear about how we protect the EU single market. Currently, businesses in Northern Ireland and Great Britain are facing increased costs as a result of the Northern Ireland Protocol. Our proposals would deal with those costs whilst protecting the EU single market. The EU will be no worse off as a result of our proposals.
Scott Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is genuine anger in the Loyalist community about the protocol and the way in which many people feel it undermines their British identity. Now that it has been unanimously rejected at the ballot box by the Unionist community, what assurances can my right honourable friend give me that if the negotiations continue to fail, we will see a bill over the coming days and weeks, not months, in this House?
Foreign Secretary.
We're committed to introducing a bill to resolve the very real issues on the ground in Northern Ireland. In parallel, we are open to negotiations with the EU, but in order to proceed on those negotiations, the EU do have to be willing to change the protocol itself to fix those very real issues.
Paul Blomfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Foreign Secretary knows that there were only 3 ways of protecting Northern Ireland's special position after Brexit: a land border on the island of Ireland, which we all reject; closer alignment between the UK and the EU, which business wanted but the government rejected; and a sea border. The Prime Minister chose a sea border. He knew the checks it would involve, but he denied it to the unionist community. Now, there are solutions which can be negotiated, but isn't the reason for today's statement that the government and the Foreign Secretary, for reasons of her own ambition, see advantage in fuelling Brexit divisions?
Foreign Secretary.
I don't agree with the honourable gentleman's analysis. There is a solution, and we have put it forward to the EU, of using commercial data that is collected in the normal course of business, sharing that in real time with the EU, making sure there are strong protections on the trusted trader scheme so that any untoward activities are acted against. We can do all of that and make that happen and protect the EU single market, whilst at the same time enabling the free flow of trade. What we need, though, is we need flexibility in the EU's mandate so they are prepared to change the protocol. And as many people in this House have already said, the protocol was never intended to be set in stone. But it is our duty as the United Kingdom government to act to restore peace and stability in Northern Ireland.
Okay, you're right, Rosa. Thank you. Thanks, Rosa. All right.
Were great. The thing which made it only tolerable was that we knew this was unfinished business. Today we face just the problems which the protocol itself foresaw. The protocol, of course, as my right honourable friend has said, has provision for it to be changed. Can I just invite her, as I welcome this, the right solution for the way forward, and what nonsense we've heard. This is a solution that could be negotiated. As I welcome it, could I just ask her to repeat once again that we will protect the EU's legitimate interests as we restore the primacy of the Good Friday Agreement and the constitutional integrity of the UK?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right. We've already established the trusted trader scheme. We've already established data sharing with the EU of commercial data. What we're proposing as part of this bill is proper enforcement to make sure the EU single market is protected. That is the best solution, in our view, that makes sure there is free flow of trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, whilst at the same time protecting the EU single market. I think we have heard across the House today that people recognise there are real issues with the Northern Ireland Protocol. My number one preference is to get a negotiated solution with the EU, but they do have to be willing to look at these type of pragmatic solutions that will both protect the EU single market, but also the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the United Kingdom.
Ian Paisley.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Foreign Secretary must be alarmed at the comments that emerged this morning from the Chairman of Marks and Spencer. Already he's had to close his business in France. His business in the Republic of Ireland is about to close. Oh, he's a Conservative, therefore he should not be doing business. That seems to be the Liberal view emerging. His business in the Republic of Ireland to export goods has to fill in 700 pages. It has to do that within an 8-hour period. It has to do some of that wording in Latin to satisfy the European community, and it also has to do it in a certain type font, or else it will not be allowed. It costs him an additional £30 million. He has said this morning on the radio that the EU has told him that they would like the same procedures for his businesses in Northern Ireland. This is a power grab. People talk about a trade war. This is a trade war to crush business in Northern Ireland. Will the Foreign Secretary ensure that whenever she's speaking to the Cabinet, that they know clearly that if they keep the protocol, power sharing isn't coming back?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I've been very clear in my statement, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we are bringing forward legislation to sort this issue out and to deal with the bureaucracy that we're seeing, the requirement for customs declarations, customs codes from businesses who are simply operating within the United Kingdom. That is why we want to create the green lane that allows properly protected goods to be freely move within the United Kingdom, and we're committed to that legislation. Now, if in the meantime, in parallel, the EU are prepared to move to a negotiated settlement to resolve the very issues the Honourable Gentleman is raising, of course we are open to those talks, but we will not allow it to delay us taking the action we need to take to restore the primacy of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement.
Dr. Andrew Morrison.
The Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee under my chairmanship produced a comprehensive set of alternative arrangements that were workable and high-tech that would erase the need for the current perniciously applied checks that most in this House agree are unnecessary. Given that they would satisfy the stated objections of the European Union, why does she think they have been stonewalled by the EU?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I'm not going to speculate as to why the EU has not changed its negotiating mandate, but I think it is very clear that there is a solution here. And my honourable friend worked very hard on this. There is a solution here that both satisfies the requirement to protect the EU single market, at the same time restores the primacy of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. And we need to make sure we're moving forward as fast as we can to that solution.
Stephen Timms.
Speaker, to make his EU deal work, the Prime Minister inserted a border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Some accepted the absurd claim that there would not be any checks across that border. That misjudgment has proved electorally disastrous and potentially fatal to the Union. Today, the Foreign Secretary has announced that the government may well breach the agreement the Prime Minister negotiated. What assessment has she made of the impact of that announcement on trade negotiations underway with other countries around the world?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, there are very real issues, as we've heard today from all sides of the House, about the way the Northern Ireland Protocol is working, and we do need to fix the Northern Ireland Protocol. Our preference is for a negotiated solution, but if that is not possible, we are putting legislation through the House of Commons and through Parliament. And as I've already said in this statement, we are clear that this bill is legal in international law, so there is no question of violating international law.
Damien Green.
Deputy Speaker, depending on which newspaper I've read over the past 2 days, I could understand either that the government wants to tear up the protocol altogether, or that it sees this proposal as an insurance policy while negotiations continue. My right honourable friend this morning has been clear that the latter interpretation would be correct. Can I welcome that very much, and can I ask her also to try to ensure some consistency in government messaging while the negotiations are going on, that actually a negotiated settlement would be preferable?
Foreign Secretary.
There are some things that are within my power and there's some things that aren't. And controlling what the British media prints is simply not within my power. We are very clear, we're not about scrapping the protocol, we're not about tearing up the protocol. What we want is to change the protocol, ideally working with the European Union, but the mandate does have to change in order to get the changes on the ground that we need to see. But in the absence of that, the legislation will ensure that those changes are made. And as I say, there's provision specifically in the legislation to implement a negotiated solution. I was very clear about that in my statement.
Joanna Cherry.
Mr. Speaker, last week it was reported that the Attorney-General has provided legal advice as a background to this bill, and I have no doubt that will be based on her views on parliamentary sovereignty and the supremacy of domestic law, which she's previously favoured this chamber with the last time they were planning on breaking international law. Now, the Honourable Member for Stone says that we should ignore, and I quote, siren voices to the contrary. The difficulty for the Foreign Secretary, the Attorney General and the Honourable Member for Stone is that the siren voices to the contrary include the United Kingdom Supreme Court. Has the Foreign Secretary read paragraph 55 of the judgment in the first Miller case, that's the case about triggering Article 50, in which the Supreme Court are quite clear that international treaties signed by the UK government are binding upon the UK in terms of international law, and as such, our obligations under them cannot be unilaterally rewritten. Is she aware of that?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, we fully respect the rule of law, and we're very clear that this bill is in line with international law.
Order. I do realise the importance of this statement, and but I would inform members that we do have a very well subscribed debate afterwards as well. So if we could have quite brief questions, I think that would be helpful. Sir Desmond Swain.
What is absolutely clear, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that those honourable members seeking to undermine the government's negotiating position haven't emerged from the trenches they dug themselves in the last Parliament, have they?
Yes. Foreign Secretary.
Well, what I do think we have heard today is that all sides of the House agree there is a real problem with the way the Northern Ireland Protocol is operating, and it needs to be solved. And I hear people saying that we want to get an agreed solution with the EU. I hope the EU will change their negotiating mandate so we are able to achieve that.
Kevin Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. She made it clear that one of the primary reasons for acting the way she is today is to try and get the executive back up and running in Northern Ireland. But she also said in her statement that the bill, and I quote, ensures that goods destined for the EU undergo full checks and controls. So there will still be checks. So on that basis, has she received an assurance from the DUP that even with these continued checks, they will agree to re-enter the executive?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I've been clear that our #1 priority is restoring the balance in the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which has been undermined by the operation of the protocol. And what we're proposing, and I will be bringing out more details of this in due course, is a green lane of trusted traders that's properly protected for goods into Northern Ireland, and a red lane for those goods that have to go through the full customs controls into the EU single market. And I'm very clear that part of our agreement, as well as protection of the UK single market, is the protection of the EU single market.
Neil.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I particularly welcome the Foreign Secretary's repeated insistence it's our intention to seek a negotiated settlement. And echoing the words of my right honourable friend, the member for Hertfordshire North East, can I urge that that is important, not just in terms of the overall objective, but also in terms of the United Kingdom's international reputation, and also to demonstrate that we act with the greatest concern for our legal obligations. Would you perhaps consider in due course making available the draft of any proposed legislation, so that those who wish to work constructively with the government to make sure we do this lawfully can perhaps test the proportionality of those measures against the objectives and against the legal advice which I know she has already received?
Foreign Secretary.
As I've said, our priority is to secure a negotiated solution. It will require the EU changing its mandate, and I do hope that following today's statement and the comments by people right across this House, that we will see some more flexibility from the EU. And we are committed to acting in line with international law. We're very clear about that. We'll set out our legal position in due course. I'm very happy to have more discussions with my honourable friend about the precise contents of the bill.
Campbell.
The State referenced the issue of the need to ensure no hard border on the island of Ireland. Would you accept from me that there's no possibility that that could happen? It's simply not practical, not possible, there's no political consent for it, and would be easily avoided if it were to come about. So that is a nonsense that needs to be dismissed. But in terms of the cross-community consensus, can she assure the House and the people of Northern Ireland that her bill will be placed before Parliament, before the summer recess, in order for people to see what progress has been made practically rather than the words?
Foreign Secretary.
I'm very clear that we will be bringing the bill out in the coming weeks. That is an important priority for this government, and we understand that we cannot see any more delay. We've already had 18 months of negotiations with the EU on this issue. Regrettably, we're not yet in a position where the EU is willing to consider changing the protocol. That is why we are obliged to take forward the bill. During that time, as I've been very clear, we remain open to negotiations, provided there is a willingness to address the real issues on the ground in Northern Ireland.
Peter Bone.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. You'll remember the years, I think it was, of negotiating to try and withdraw from the European Union under the previous Prime Minister. And it was dragged out by the European Union. It was only when we had the new Prime Minister who was going to act decisively that we got the withdrawal from the EU, we got a free trade agreement without any quotas. So may I suggest to the Foreign Secretary, Madam Deputy Speaker, that she should publish this bill straight away and get on with it, because the only way you're going to get the EU to come to the negotiation table and really negotiate with you is if you threaten them with that bill. So can she be more precise exactly when that bill is coming in? Is it next week or the week after?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I agree with my honourable friend. It is urgent that we act, and I can assure my honourable friend that this bill is coming in the following weeks.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The businesses and communities dealing with the consequences of Brexit need honesty and certainty, not the chaos and confusion of a potential trade war. So can the Foreign Secretary reassure them? She's repeatedly today said that what she intends to do is in line with international law and talked about the TCA. I know she won't publish as yet the legal advice, but can she tell us which